leaders at NATO were skeptical to include the Ukraine because they pretty much understood the fact that Russia may have been against it anyway. It definitely would have created a problem maybe sooner than even what's going on now. So if the Ukraine had to join NATO back then, you would probably have a war on your hands. We'd probably be in World War III right now.
They were mostly just trying to prevent the antagonization of Russia, for the most part, is what it seems like they were doing.
For sure. And according to Putin, President Putin, whatever they call the man, the reality is he feels that the Ukraine was part of Russia anyway. You have a lot of pro-Russian people in the Ukraine, according to Putin. That's his perception or his belief system. But
that's his
at the same time, the Ukrainian people are very, very resilient. The Klitschko brothers are fighting in the war. The mayor,
who is this? Klitschko. Oh, is that the fight? The boxing? The boxing?
Yeah, the boxing heavyweight champions. Yeah.
Okay.
They're fighting the war. The president, he's staying in the Ukraine. He's not going into hiding or anything like that. But
did you know that President Zelensky was formerly a comedian, an actor?
Yeah, I know his whole history. Comedian, actor, and he was very popular. So he became the president of the Ukraine.
Do you know anything about his show? Servant of the People. Do you know anything about that show?
Yeah, I heard about it. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I heard about it. Yes.
I watched a few seasons of it. It's actually very interesting. So in the television show, he was a history teacher. And one day some kids recorded a video of him just ranting and raving about the state of the affairs in Ukraine and just state of politics and all the corruption. And his video went viral. And his students were just like, hey, you should run for president. And the next morning, he was elected president on his television show. And then his show became such a hit, he eventually went on to become president of Ukraine. You know,
Hollywood stars. Story. Well, Hollywood stars, sometimes magic happens. That's what happened with him. That was a miracle, but he's the president now. But he's showing that he has some backbone. He's showing that he has some fortitude.
Most definitely. A lot of respect. You know, to him. I don't know too many leaders that in that position would have done the same thing, but I definitely have a lot of respect for this man.
Well, you know, when things got hot over in Uganda, Idi Amin, he went into exile over in Egypt somewhere. Oh no, Saudi Arabia. That's where he went in hiding in Saudi Arabia. When things got a little bit too hot in the kitchen, a lot of guys leaders try to flee. All right.
Okay. What do you think Putin ultimately wants out of this invasion?
Like I said before, Putin actually just pulled a gangster move. This entire invasion is all about, dominating the Ukraine, and letting the Ukraine know that Russia is the big father, the big brother over there, not the Ukraine. You guys should not even be independent anyway under a Putin type of administration. He's letting the whole world know, like Putin said, if the United States were to intervene, he would unleash something on the earth that we have never seen before. So he's playing the gangster tactics right now. And the moral of the story is that they're opening up the door for a potential World War III type of scenario. Hopefully it'll never come to that, but they're opening up a window for it because the United States, they're supporting the Ukraine, like underground, so to speak. Okay. Poland, they're supporting the Ukraine. The Germans are supporting the Ukraine. So China kind of supports Russia, right? So now you got two superpowers, China and Russia. You have the United States, Great Britain, France, and maybe I haven't heard nothing much about Spain, but Poland, Germany, those countries are not superpowers at all. So they have militaries, don't get me wrong, but Russia's having a hard time. They have their hands full over there dealing with the Ukraine. So we don't really know how that's going to turn out in the end, because some people just think because it's Russia, they're going to be more dominant. But the Ukrainian people, they have a whole lot of fight left in them. A whole lot of fight.
Well, they may have bitten off more than they can chew, because a lot of analysts were suspecting that Kiev was going to fall within 48 to 72 hours. And that still has not happened. You know, like you said, the Ukrainian people have definitely proven that they are resistant and that they are going to stand up and fight for their country. And I don't think that was something that world military leaders were expecting. And I think you bring up a great point in regards to other countries supporting one another under the table. You know, I think China kind of they definitely want to stay out of it because they don't want to feel the brunt of the sanctions that Russia's feeling, because they're really about trying to overtake America as the #1 economy in the world.
Right.
You know, so they don't really want any smoke there, but they're probably, you know, providing some support under the table. No difference than how, you know, the Western powers are supporting Ukraine with, you know, weapons and things of that nature. I mean, I don't know. The rumor has it that they may even already have dedicated a few soldiers to the efforts, like maybe special forces, something along those lines, but nothing. Whatever they're doing, they're definitely engaging in more like a proxy warfare type deal. They're not regular uniformed soldiers who are helping in those efforts if they're coming from other places other than Ukraine. I can say that much.
Well, you have to understand as well, a lot of people in Russia, a lot of the soldiers, they're not really into this particular fight the way that Putin may want them to be into the fight. For example, some of the Russian soldiers saying they're not going to kill their brothers in the Ukraine. And then we've heard stories, and I've seen some videos where the residents over and the citizens in the Ukraine were, you know, providing water to the Russian soldiers. Some of the soldiers said to hell with this, and some of the people in Russia are protesting against the war also. So, you know, you have a lot of things going on right now behind the scenes, but Putin is just trying to act like he's Alexander the Great or, you know, Napoleon Bonaparte or something like that. This guy is really insane. We've had world peace for a little while anyway within that region of the world, and all of a sudden he pulls a stunt like this. NATO, the president of the Ukraine was not going to join NATO anyway. I mean, come on, man.
I think ultimately, I think ultimately, you know, Putin has a very big ego. And I think he might suffer from toxic masculinity. And at this point, he's gone so far to turn around would really be a hit to his egotistical nature. So he's too much of a man's man to, you know, to go walk his way back. So if anything, he's going to double down.
Well, Russia is a communist country. Putin is a billionaire. He has a lot of billionaire, you know, friends and cronies and everything. So he's really going against communistic type of policy anyway. Like socialism, communism is not about people being billionaires. It's about everybody pretty much being on the same level. So you have
except for the ones at the top, basically.
Right, yeah, at the top. Because, you know, you got to think about Mao Zedong over in China back in the day. You look at the Russian, you know, Karl Marx, you know, all those different theories and all that kind of stuff, you know, socialist theories or whatever the case may be. But Putin, I predict that if Putin was to deploy or introduce chemical weapons into this war, then the entire world would actually come down on him. I believe the United States would not have any other choice but to get involved in the war, because President Biden did say that if Putin were to use chemical weapons, the United States would have no other choice but to step in. And that would be a catastrophe across the world.
That's definitely a very interesting take, you know. So I know that a lot of people around the world are feeling the brunt of all of this. You know, my gas bill was like, I think over $100 yesterday. You know, usually it's around 60. And I thought to myself, like, man, you know, I think I have been blasting the heat a little more, but then I realized that, wait a minute, these higher prices are because of those sanctions. You know, we're cutting off, you know, our ties to Russia, and we're no longer, a lot of the Western countries are no longer using those Russian, not even Western countries, but just more so the global supply. You know, the U.S. doesn't use a lot of the Russian gas, natural or oil, but, you know, it's sold on the global market. So since the supply has decreased, that would definitely have an effect on prices everywhere, despite us not even really using their reserves directly. So that's definitely interesting. I think gas was like, you go from, well, I'm in Oklahoma, so you go from regular, I think it goes up like 30 or 40 cents with each increase. And premium is like 430 something. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy.
So, you know, really, wars, they're all about people making money, right? Billions of dollars will be made. The rich people will become wealthier. The poor people will lose their lives and their family legacies in these type of wars over here. Also, take a look, a blast from the past. Adolf Hitler misjudged Russia when he sent all his troops into Russia to try to conquer Russia, and a lot of his troops end up dying in the cold. They tried to retreat, and Adolf Hitler told them they better commit suicide before they give in or surrender to the Russians, right? He really didn't care about his troops out there. Right now, Putin has lost a lot of troops in this Ukrainian invasion from Russia, and it appears that he really doesn't care. The Russians bombed a maternity unit at a hospital. A lady that was pregnant lost her life, and her child died.
I
Her
think I saw
newborn
that.
died, and it's crazy. And that's just one story of the casualties that are steady piling up over in the Ukraine.
And from what you're saying, it seems almost as if the Russian soldiers really are not buying into this mission.
Well, you have probably some real loyal Russian soldiers without a doubt, but probably 30% of the Russian soldiers, they're not buying into the mission at all. Putin just woke up one day. I don't think he just woke up one day. Don't get me wrong, but I think he lost a lot of sleep over the last 2 or 3 months trying to make a decision on when to invade the Ukraine. So what he's letting the world know is if you ever try to join NATO, he plans a step to you, no matter who you might be. Now, the thing is, China just sitting back, taking a look at what's going on, because, China would like to conquer or invade Taiwan. Okay, they would like to go over their country anyway, so they're going to watch what Russia's doing and kind of check on the world, response to it. And then next thing you know, China might step up to the plate and take over Taiwan.
Right. That you're definitely right. We might have a crazy scenario on our hands. So I mean, I guess Russia's definitely in a tight situation right now. I was doing some reading, and it seems as if the sanctions obviously are putting a hurting on them, but there might still be mechanisms through which they can still fund their war efforts. An interesting article I read the other day spoke about how Goldman Sachs is actually trading Russian debt on the secondary market. And so that's still a financial mechanism through which Russia can raise money to fund its war efforts. I know a lot of American companies do own Russian debt. And so that was like a window that Biden left open, to sort of help American companies through this economic crisis that has been caused from the war effort. Do you think that these sanctions are putting enough pressure on Russia where eventually they're just going to be like, this is hurting our pockets way too much, we got to cut this out? Or do you think they're trying to just go full-fledged and, actually conquer, the capital and install a puppet regime in Kiev?
Well, when you have diabolical, narcissistic leaders like Putin, what you're dealing with is a guy that cannot accept defeat or failure. So he would actually continue the war, even though his people they may lose the war, and they may not get any more traction because the Ukrainian people are fighting back. Instead of him, pulling out, he would probably just keep going until all of his soldiers are probably dead over in the Ukraine, unfortunately. Right. That goes to show you people are dispensable or disposable out here, and it doesn't make any sense. And also, I would like to say that the reality is Russia, they're asking China to help them right now with some weapons. They're asking China to send some weapons to them to help build their arsenal up a little bit more.
Right. How do you feel about Western companies like pulling out of Russia, such as maybe Starbucks and McDonald's? How do you feel about that?
Well, I believe it's a good gesture for right now, because you can only fight with some of the resources right now. If you pull out, and the Russian people, they like the Starbucks, that's not going to stop them from fighting, because they can't get their Starbucks coffee or whatever, McDonald's. I believe the businesses are showing that they have some backbone. To hell with Russia. You guys are dead wrong. But now this is where the problem comes in, that this is more of a controversial type of perspective. Let's say Russia, for some reason, decided to invade Nigeria or invade Ghana or all the way over in Africa. Would all these countries be up in a uproar then? See, that's what I know. Even though Africa is far away from Russia, but you have to look at the uproar then. Would everybody be stepping up to the plate, pulling out from them if they were invading an African country? All right. So the reality is that it's still like a little. It appears, but you know what? Russia already anticipated that people would pull out. So the reality is that everybody's doing what they would normally do, and if the sanctions do not work, then they may have to come up. The other superpowers may have to come up with a more orchestrated effort to get Russia to back down. Now, keep in mind, the Russian president and some of the diplomats from Russia, they continue to meet with diplomats from the Ukraine, even though the war is going on. So they're trying to meet and come up with some type of plan, but you never know. I'm hoping that a miracle would take place and they actually, come up with some type of plan to stop the war and have a ceasefire. But the reality, the damage has been done already. Over 3 million people have had 3 million people have left the Ukraine. The casualties are steady, rising and everything. So the damage has been done.
Hey, maybe they should send Mr. Ceasefire Hardiman over there to solve the issue. What do you think?
I would love to mediate this conflict. But let me say this to you. Russia will not back up on this war until the people in Russia began feeling the real pain, being attacked by people from the Ukraine. The Ukraine, they're on the defense right now. Russia's on the offense, so to speak. The Ukrainians are trying to defend themselves. But if the Ukrainian people were to secure the right type of weapons and arsenal where they can go beyond just fighting the Russians that are coming across the border and start firing back into Russia, then I think Putin might, have a change of heart, change his mind, change of direction, so to speak.
Well, you brought up a good point about how this was actually a calculated move. I didn't think about that, that Russia, because they run scenarios and they probably, like you said, anticipated the blowback from the sanctions. I didn't think about that. So he may have ultimately, kind of understands like what he wants, what he will succeed and what he won't. And that's interesting. You were talking about the Russian diplomats and Ukrainians talking to one another as well. Yes. That was one thing I found interesting about World War II is that the entire time the war was going on, you had some of the Nazi diplomats, they were actually going behind Hitler's back, trying to broker a deal with Britain. I didn't know that. That just goes to show you the complexity, of these global incidents and things of that nature.
Well,
I noticed
also the same way when you're dealing with gangs, street gangs, street organizations. Sometimes the soldiers might fight on a regular basis, but the leaders are somewhere meeting behind closed doors. It happens all the time. It's all about controlling the world's resources. The Ukrainian people have oil. Russia has some oil, but the United States, we're not dependent on all the oil from Russia anyway. But you have the nuclear plants over in the Ukraine. Right. So it's about world domination right now. And the superpowers, that's why they call the United States, Russia, China like superpowers, because if you look throughout history, if you're not a superpower, you will be conquered sooner or later. So what Putin is doing, he's trying to make sure the Ukrainian government or the country of Ukraine does not become a superpower, okay? Because even on the streets of Chicago, I've seen videos when guys run up on a porch and start shooting at somebody, and the guys on the porch are shooting back. Then the guys that were shooting at them, they had to run back to their car because they did not anticipate nobody shooting back at them. So if the Ukrainian people get lucky and they start firing rockets into Russia, bombs into Russia, then we'll see a change of direction possibly by President Putin, because right now all the casualties are taking place in the Ukraine, and also the Russian soldiers are being killed in the Ukraine.
I think that you bring up an interesting parallel comparing the global political landscape with the fight for territories with the local gangs. Can you just go a little bit more into like how those two areas, although vastly different on scale, might actually be more similar than people think?
Well, it's not even really complicated. It's more similar than people may think. For example, you have in Chicago, you have the Folks Nation and the People's Nation, the 5-point star, 6-point star. So what happens, a lot of people form under an alliance of the 5-point star, the Folks Nation. That's the 6-point star, which is the Folks Nation. 5-point star, which is the People's Nation. But they come up under that umbrella because everybody wants support. So in case a big gang war was to jump off, you have all these supporters over here under your alliance. And that's what NATO is all about. NATO is the same way. You have some of the other countries join NATO, and they have the big brother country like the United States. So if you were to basically, try to invade one of the countries that's under NATO, like a Poland or whatever, one of the other smaller countries, then the United States will step up as your big brother. The same on the streets, because you're part of the nation out there. You're part of a nation, even though you may have gone to war with somebody else that's part of another nation or another tribe. Now you have the support of that entire nation, which might be comprised of, let's say, 20 different gangs, all right? And then, that's just the way it goes. And that's the philosophy of NATO, but it's been that way for quite some time. So there's no big difference. It's just different levels of gang warfare, political warfare, world warfare. That's all it is. Even in Africa, the different tribal conflicts that lead to mass genocide and all those type of, scenarios. So That's the main comparison to it right now.
Okay.
And that's what NATO is all about. But you know, everybody needs protection sometimes, because I guarantee you, if you're not seen as a superpower in the year of our Lord 2022, somebody will conquer and invade and take over your country. Period. Hands down, no questions asked. They will be right on your border before you know it.
I have a layered question for you. Do you think the Biden administration may have played this one too close to their chest? And secondly, do you think the outcome of this situation would have been different had Donald Trump been reelected for a second term?
For some reason, I knew you were going there about Trump. So let me ask the Biden question first. I think President Biden is doing the best he can do considering the circumstances. I'll say this much. I believe that the United States government played it cheap in a way where, you know, you have a lot of people that work for the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. You have operatives that are Navy SEALs, military intelligence. It appears that somebody dropped the ball, because how could it be that nobody really knew that Russia was about to invade the Ukraine? No, that you cannot tell me that the military intelligence could not pick up the fact that Russia was planning to invade another country, especially the Ukraine. Okay, and I'll be kind of bold about the Donald Trump question. I don't think Putin would have invaded the Ukraine if Donald Trump was the president. I'm not a Donald Trump supporter, but Donald Trump, in my mind of minds, he's nobody to play with. We would probably be in World War III right now if Donald Trump was in office, because I don't think he would have gone. He would have just reacted, man. And he said it before. He called the president of North Korea Rocket Man. He playing with the man, called him Rocket Man. And I think Donald Trump's relationship with Putin, maybe Putin would have talked to Donald Trump before he decided to, make the gangster move he made, because Donald Trump would have probably, depending on how he would feel one day, Donald Trump probably would have pushed the button. To be honest with you, to send troops over there immediately. So
they probably would have worked something out. I think they have a better. I think their circles have a better personal relationship. I think they may have worked something out where it would have been prevented. And also, I think Donald Trump would have drawn a line in the sand, like you said, because he wasn't going to allow anything crazy to happen on his watch. And I think Putin may have a little bit more respect for Donald Trump because of his brash, no nonsense nature. I think they're sort of similar, but I think Putin is much more calm and reserved than Donald Trump.
Well, if that's the case, Donald Trump should step up now and try to stop the war, sincerely. Even though he's not the president, he has a relationship with Putin. He should talk to Putin and tell him to pull back right now. The Ukraine has to be rebuilt now. There's mass devastation all over the place. So Donald Trump, if he has the power, he has the relationship with Putin, I was about to say it another way. Matter of fact, I said he need to step his ass up and go over there and talk to Putin, man. Just go over there and do his best to try to end this war, okay? Sincerely. And I mean that with all my heart and soul, because Donald Trump, he showed us, I'm not totally against Donald Trump, because when he was the president, I'm not a supporter of Donald Trump, but when he was the president, nothing happened in the United States. People thought that the United States was going to go crazy. He was going to mess the economy up, or we would be engaged in a war. Nothing happened under Donald Trump at all. He just talked a bunch of rhetoric, but we still were pretty safe. We were a pretty safe country under Donald Trump.